All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson Mackay.
And today's guest is Joel Burgess. Joel is a human potential coach who helps men become all they're capable of being by building an unshakable mind and bulletproof systems. He's an expert in the area of human performance and is ready to help you bridge the gap between who you are now and the person you know you're capable of becoming. In this interview, we discuss how to find your core values in your life, why you should look to consciously inflict stress on yourself every day to help you succeed, how to use the concept of your future self to shape how your present self should act, and so much more. And now, let's get to the interview. Thank you so much for coming on. It's an absolute joy to have somebody that I followed on social media like a stalker. But for people who maybe don't recognise the name, could you give a quick introduction and why you're changing lives?
So my name is Joel Burgess. I am a high performance coach. I work mainly with men, helping them develop their mindset, systems, discipline, routines, habits, all that kind of good stuff. And why am I changing lives? Well, it's what gives me meaning. It's what gives me purpose. Mm-hmm. It really is what gives me meaning. And I suppose for most of my life, I've been searching for my thing. I worked in property initially, having to, end my professional ambitions for playing professional rugby. Went into the world of property and I never really fell in love with it. Never felt fully aligned with it. I then started my own business. Did relatively well with that. Worked in it for 4 or 5 years. Again, never felt like it was me, and I was always searching for my thing. And I must be honest, like I thought that thing for me was more money, and I got really good at getting more money at the time. And actually that just masked the pain of like not living aligned with my values. And I actually fell into coaching really kind of out of convenience, really. I wanted to be a better manager for my last business and trained as a coach because I knew that was the way I wanted to lead my business. And as soon as I started, I was like, this is my thing. I felt so aligned with it. I felt alive when I coached. And I just, it was an immediate connection. And I just see that there's always people to help. There's always people to help. And I just, that's my mission really, is just to help other men, other people find connection and start living a fully engaged life where they're living aligned with their values, they're living aligned with their heart and really pursuing their better self. And because that's, for me, what a great life is. So, yeah.
No, it's a great answer, because I think that's something that comes across as like, you were saying that you kind of fell into it, but when you go into your social media, it's amazing because you could come away with 20 action steps we can immediately do that change our lives. You're not the hooey-fooey stuff, you give straightforward action steps that people can just go, how do I make a plan for my life? How do I sleep better? How do I wake up? How do I feel inspired? And it's amazing, and you intersperse it with like your own journey and your own, like how you find the connection and your beautiful family and stuff like that. Do you see a problem that men come to you with particular similarities and things? I know you're probably fed up of answering this question, but do you see like people using drink, drugs, technology to hide from that feeling that they should be doing more, but they don't know how, or they find their own why in life?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, it's compulsive busyness. And that's really masking the pain of not pursuing the dreams that they know that exist inside of them, and it's stopping them sort of sit with that discomfort of perhaps not living aligned, perhaps not pursuing their dreams, perhaps a realization that they've created this life which they don't even want. It's just society's told them that this is the life they should want. And if they sat with that, it would be painful, it would be uncomfortable, and people avoid that discomfort through mostly compulsive busyness. I see just being on the go nonstop, saying yes to lots of things. And that was really the way I kind of masked that pain as well, was compulsive busyness, shopping, alcohol, partying. But yeah.
Because it's a thing, isn't it? Is a lot of guys go, no, I don't drink, I'm fine. I only have a few beers when I'm out with friends. Not, but they don't look at all the other bad habits they've built up. That's keeping them like there's a saying about, you're maybe feeling busy isn't a good thing. It's a sign that your priorities are wrong. You're focusing haphazardly everywhere. And I really like that, because I used to think being busy was a sign I was being successful. Then I realised, no, I was just being a bad project manager, a bad timekeeper, etc. How do you find your own core beliefs? Because you're a big component of finding our own true self, our own why in life, not really caring about the how. That'll take care of itself. How do we find our own core values? And what was the point that you realised, no, I need more than this?
It's, for me, a lot of it comes in discomfort. It comes in sitting with yourself, sitting in silence. It comes from pursuing things and leaning into discomfort, stepping into growth leaning into growth, not comfort, leaning into growth, stepping away from comfort. And in that pursuit, in that discomfort, you start to understand like what you're about, what brings you alive. And actually, when you start using that discomfort as what I call like reverse indicators, actually, that's when you start to understand yourself more. And I'll give you an example. So I used to compare myself and get triggered by the likes of Tony Robbins and Brendan Burchard and Robin Sharma. And like, it's crazy to say this, right? But they used to trigger me. And I used to find myself going like, I could do that, or whatever. They're not that good, and it's wild for me to even admit that. But actually, my coach said to me, what exists in them exists in you. And that was a really big, powerful moment for me, because I was like, wow, that potential exists in me. I wouldn't compare myself against a ski jumper or a snowboarder or a darts player, because I know that doesn't exist in me. I compare myself to people who actually there's something in them that I can see in me. So actually using that as well, using these reverse indicators of where you compare yourself to others, what you're fearful of, what you're resisting, using those as reverse indicators to go, actually, that's not what I should avoid. That's what I should lean into and explore. And then just noticing with self-awareness how you feel afterwards in that. So that's kind of how I believe we come to our core beliefs, our values, and that's kind of how I did as well.
Because a lot of people struggle with that, like the sitting in silence to actually listen to that internal voice. And I mean, I've suffered with depression, and I used to go and like struggle with, like, I would go to a pub and sit because mates were there, and I'd be like, I don't want to be here. This isn't me. But because it was like the socially accepted thing, and I wasted hours in pubs and that, wishing I wasn't there. And I know that feeling of like, you're kind of looking around going, yeah, I'm really busy, but it's not what I want to be doing. It's I'm not being challenged. And how do you kind of start working with somebody to say to them, oh, look, that's not, this is what your core beliefs are saying. You're just doing what society tells you, what your wife, that your kids, what your friends tell you to do. How do we start the change? How do we find that initial ignition to change our own lives?
It so often comes through pain. Pain is a big motivator, right? And that's why you'll see on my page, like, I'm not all about positivity. And I think there is too much positivity. And actually, we need to leverage negative energy. We need to leverage negative emotions, negative thoughts sometimes, because that can be a motivator, that can move us into action. I also at the same time believe that, it shouldn't have to take pain. Like for me, it was a bit of luck, but really it was deep pain. Like I was really disconnected to who I wanted to be. And that pain kind of forced me to take action. Um, but I don't think it needs to take pain, but it so often does. And actually one thing I do with my clients, well, explore with like people who are thinking about coaching is I ask them, what would be the cost of inaction? Because no one thinks about that. What would be the cost of saying the same, or what would be the cost of not making any change, not pursuing your dream, not starting that blog, not starting that side business, all these things? What would it cost you? Because regrets, we'll all have regrets. We'll all have regrets, and we almost need to choose our regrets. And using that sort of negative thinking, negative emotions is a great way to move us into action. So I would say, yeah, leveraging some of that pain, that negativity, and future pacing that as well.
I love it because it's rare to hear somebody say use the bad things, learn from the bad things, because a lot of times it's they all assume that we're all perfect when they give advice, or you have to be in a certain position before you can then go to the next level. I hate myself for using these puns, but because it's something like I've noticed, it's like a lot of guys just don't know what they're doing, and they feel worse because they're seeing what they should be. They're being told that what they should be and changing their lives. And I really was keen to have you on because you talk about building standards, not expectations. Making habits, like building bulletproof habits into changing our lives, an unbreakable mindset and things like that. And that's something a lot of guys don't have. But I really liked your idea of looking at your future self and seeing so rather than hiding in the comfort zone to avoid a bit of pain and discomfort, you're stepping out of it. Is that a great way of looking at the future self, to kind of think, what will the future self of me want, rather than what does the current me want to hide from?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it is Nassim Taleb who says you can summarize personal growth in 2 words, which is delayed gratification. When we learn to make hard choices now, it leads to an easy life. Easy choices now lead to a hard life. And one way for me that I found a really powerful tool, mindset shift, is thinking about my future self. What would he do in this situation? How would he be? What advice would he be giving me? What would be the best thing for me to do now for him? And when you start to think in relation to your best self, you start to make those hard choices. And sure enough, your future self will be thankful. There's a theory called end of history illusion, where essentially people believe all their change and growth that has happened to date, and there's no more change and growth to happen. But I say to my clients, think back to who you were 5 years ago. Okay, going to be much different beliefs, different values, different circumstances. Everything's going to be different. Well, think about the person you're going to be in 5 years. It's going to be, again, totally different. And you have 2 choices. One, you can live by default, and you'll have no idea who that's going to be. And you're just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's going to be chance who that is. And you're going to be influenced by your circumstances, environment, your conditioning, and you're going to live unconsciously. You've got no ability to say who that would be. Living by design, on the other hand, is getting clear on that person, building the systems and the standards that will allow you to get there, going all in and kind of letting go of the attachment to that. And that's what I'm all about. It's getting clear on that person and going for that. Like, you're not going to be exactly the same as that person, but at least you're living consciously. You're living from the inside out, where you're designing your environment, you're working with your environment, you're working with your circumstances, and you're deliberately choosing, you're consciously choosing who you want to be and your actions that align with your future self. So
it makes perfect sense when you think about it. It's like, you see people try to change their lives without really knowing who they want to be. So they'll go out and say, I'm going to go and start running. And you go, well, why are you running? What's this going to benefit? Or like they'll go to a coach and he'll say, go work out in the gym. And you go, do you like working out in the gym? No. Well, why not go and get a team sport that you enjoy and you can socially connect with other people? And I really like that idea of looking at yourself and finding out the why. The how will then just come naturally. And you will kind of find it. And I liked your idea of creating habits, but building the environment in a way where you kind of had to do them. So like you wanted to take cold showers, so you turn your thermostat off. You wanted to read more, so you turn your Wi-Fi off on a timer to make your environment suit you. Do you think that's a problem? Is a lot of people don't have their lifestyle set up to benefit their hobby, changing their habits, and that they're trying to take habits that aren't really what they need in their life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people forget how much of an impact our environment has on us. They say you're a product of your environment. You're a product of your habits, but you're a product of your environment. Your environment's kind of shape your habits. So this is kind of at the heart of living by design. It's about, who is my future self? What kind of behaviors would he do? And then working with your environment to slow boil yourself, to almost using the temp in bowling analogy, sort of keep you on track, that it's automatic that you're going to become that person. And I think the reason why very few people are willing to do that is because they're just not committed. They're not in love with their future self. They're not totally clear. They haven't got that why. Because when you have that why, that real burning desire to become your future self, you then just get committed. And you make that decision once, like switching the thermostat off, like switching the Wi-Fi off. You get fully committed, and then the decision's made. And then you just, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where your environment is working with the person you want to be, and it's automatic. So once you start living like this, things just become this virtuous circle. Whereas when you're living by default, it's the opposite. Your environment sort of drag you down, and then your actions confirm your suboptimal beliefs, and then it can spiral out of control. And then people can wake up going like, hang on a minute, how did I get here? I don't even recognize myself anymore.
And do you think that's why people have a problem with like discipline and consistency, is that they're taking on something that isn't true to their core beliefs or what they want from life? So they're maybe taking on a habit like going to the gym, which maybe isn't what they need in their life, or that they're wanting to take on another habit that sounds good and impressive to others but isn't. And if we take habits that are aligned to our values and our goals, we'll actually, you're just going to do them because it's by design. It'll just naturally take care of itself. Do you think that's a big sort of part of it?
Yeah, I think there are many parts to it, which I can talk about, but I think absolutely. I think when I work with my clients, like the first thing we'll do is talk about values, getting them really clear on the values. Once you know your values, you kind of have the bedrock from which to make all your decisions. Values and vision, get those two, you have the formula for living by design. And then, working backwards from there. And it's very simple. It's like, okay, values, vision, who would I need to be to live into those values? What actions, what would I need to do? Who do I need to be? What person do I need to become? And then kind of working back from there. So once you have that emotional connection to the bigger picture, you can then align your actions, your habits, your standards with that bigger picture. But I think people aren't willing to ask like those questions, like what's important to me? What is my vision? What do I want to create? Who do I want to be? Because they're scared. They're scared of what it could untangle. It's going to throw the apple out the apple cart, whatever that saying is. It's going to throw a can in the worms. I'm throwing all the sayings that are not getting it right. It's raining cows and monkeys.
I used to say memes, and people will be like, what the hell is he on about? Because I'd seen it, but I never heard it. And I was just like, I usually say things that fast. People are kind of, I know what I mean in my head, but it doesn't come out of my mouth. And you see people kind of going, I think I know what you mean. But no, I mean, we've been talking almost like 20 minutes, and I can see how you've been so effective because you just have this natural way of connecting and drawing people in and just listening and understanding. And it's rare to see that. I see a lot of guys talking about like a lot higher level stuff, and they're kind of like, you come away and go, what did he just say? Where with you, it feels like you're speaking to me as a mate, and you're just encouraging me to find my own journey. And it's, you're just helping me along. You're not pushing me. You're not trying to change me. You're there to support me. How do we start dealing with, this is our ego. This is our societal pressures. This is our parental pressures. How do we start thinking, okay, this is what I truly want. This is my hang-ups, and deal with the baggage, deal with the bad shit, the things that we hate about ourselves. Because a lot of people are not willing to have that uncomfortable questions, and it's easier just hiding it through work or whatever. How do you start working with somebody to really get into the dark stuff, to find their light?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And in some ways, I don't feel fully in a position to answer that, because I've still got so much work to do on myself. Yeah. I'm all about high performance habits, routines, and I've still got a lot of stuff to unpack on myself. So in some ways, I don't feel fully in a position to answer that. At the same time, I do facilitate deep insight, and I really believe coaching has an amazing place for that, because sitting with this stuff on your own is very, very difficult. To be guided, asking the right questions, to sit in silence. And that's the power of coaching, is that you get asked questions that you just would never ask yourself. And then you hold silence. And there's a lady called Nancy Klein who has a book called, I've forgotten the name of the book, but there's a quote that says that the quality of your thinking is determined by the quality of the other person's listening. And that's one of my main roles as a coach, is just to listen, to be fully present with them. And that just allows them to think beyond their fear, beyond the rational mind, beyond their conditioned mind. And it sort of allows them to silence that and sort of really connect with like what's going on underneath. And, sometimes just holding silence for minutes and minutes and minutes, it allows them to connect to that. It's like, that's what's going on. And that happens so often. And when I was training to be a coach, we did this exercise called listening like a stone, where we asked one question: what's on your mind? And we couldn't speak for 15 minutes, but all we had to do was hold space and listen to them. And when it was my turn, I was bawling my eyes out. I had this big realization, big insight. The person asked me, what's on your mind? And that's it. But then they listened with such presence, compassion, non-judgment. And that's a big role of what I do, is listen with compassion, no judgment. And if we can learn to do the same with ourselves, is listen to ourselves without any judgment, and just observe the mind, observe the stories, observe the stories that are going on. And then we are able to really sort of unpack that. But it's that judgment that causes so much of the problem, because when we start judging, we then avoid that voice, that story, then we run away and distract ourselves with our phones or what have you. So it's silence, compassion, non-judgment, how I facilitate it.
Because it kind of rang a bell with me, because when I was really bad, I had been diagnosed with depression. I had gone and I tried speaking therapy, CBT, like cognitive behavior therapy. And the thing that came from that was people saying, you're not your thoughts. These aren't like commands. This is just your brain going, well, this is the bias you've had, or the beliefs, or the things you're talking about. So you're obviously looking for them in your life. So I'll pick out these things, and realizing that these are just suggestions, but you could change your thoughts. You could change your way of thinking. That transformed my life. And I couldn't find any podcasts where people were actually talking about, look, you can be suicidal. You can have committed a crime and, feel the worst person in the world and still come out and go great things in life. You just need to be open and honest and deal with that and speak to people. And I found a lot of people just don't have that growth mindset. It scares them to kind of to deal with it? I mean, have you had any sort of issues with? Have you looked at cognitive behavior therapy, EFT, like emotional freedom tapping, and those sort of things? Do you find those kind of things help during your teaching?
I haven't. No, I don't know a huge amount. I looked into NLP and hypnosis, but never got around to doing it. Yeah, I've experienced emotional breakdowns, burnout. So my understanding is kind of limited to my own experience. But it's with my coaching, it's very much kind of high performance, looking forward, routines, discipline.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's probably a good thing because you've actually lived that. You're not just one of these people that talks about it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you've actually been able to say, well, this happened to me. And people can relate to stories. We're social animals. So it's
Mm-hmm.
good to hear you say, like, okay, I had the worst moment by doing this. And somebody could say, okay, maybe it's possible for me to say my worst moment because
Mm-hmm.
we're open and nobody's judging each other. And I
Mm-hmm.
found that really impressive that you've talked in interviews about support groups, being emotional, finding people to connect with, and
Mm-hmm.
like mastermind groups and helping each other. How do
Mm-hmm.
we find those kind of people? How do we look at the relationships in our lives that are bad for us? Take out the
Mm-hmm.
bad habits. Is there a way of reviewing our life? Initially, like an 80-20 kind of approach or something, perhaps?
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, I do think yeah, 80% of our problems are probably created by 20% of the people, and um, I've personally found like being proactive and finding new groups rather than looking at your current network and understanding, okay, who do I need to move away from, or who do I need to and I've kind of gone to that route of like, they need to change, they need to come with me kind of thing. And I was very much in that victim mindset. But I found my kind of mastermind, but just being proactive, going to events, speaking and leading by example. So the mastermind I'm in, there's four of us, and I met sort of the guy who came up with the idea at an event, and I just spoke really openly, vulnerably at the event. Not many other men did that day, and he saw that. Kind of saw that immediate connection, and he came up afterwards, and then he shared vulnerably about his current situation, and immediately we just got a bond, and then we immediately had this connection. So I would say, if you're looking to find your tribe, is you've got to be proactive. You've got to go to these events where other men or women like who are having these conversations are hanging out, and then just lead by example. When you start sharing vulnerably, start sharing openly, without and listening without any judgment, you just get immediate connection. And there are now numerous men's groups and men's circles and men's events and retreats, which is just amazing.
Mm.
So I would say, yeah, join those, be proactive, and yeah, it's just, I think more men need other men need to surround themselves with other men who are willing to express their emotions and their thoughts, and then hear the
Mm.
non-judgment, see the non-judgment.
No, it's a very good answer because it's something. When I came from a small fishing village, and everybody was very much you go to the pub, you play football on a Saturday, you get blitzed, and then you recover on a Sunday and you go to work. There was no such thing as I'm feeling sad. You would all
Mm-hmm.
take the mickey out of each other as a way of showing who's dominant, who's masculine, and you're like, so I had
Mm-hmm.
to go away and use things like meetup.com, where you go and find
Mm-hmm.
like groups who are into blogging, podcasting. It's a great
Mm-hmm.
site, which I highly recommend. And I
Mm-hmm.
ended up going to a new city for a job. And I knew that was a chance to recreate myself. So I found Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, playing five-a-side football. I found a lot of like new people by going into things that I was interested in, not playing the
Mm-hmm.
life that I was wanting, but playing the life that I actually wanted, not the
Mm-hmm.
one that I was pretending to have, but the one I actually wanted. How do you advise people to make that initial step? How do we stop caring what others are thinking and comparing ourselves and actually just stepping up and going, this is me. I'm batshit crazy. I'm weird, but I'm happy. I'm not the social media image that other people make. I'm just me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just Joel. I'm just whoever. How do we stop comparing ourselves, stop caring what others are thinking, and just live. How do we make that initial step, do you think?
It's a really good question. I think what kind of comes up for me is, it starts with self-awareness, and it starts with also just getting out of your head. A lot of men are in their head, and their head is obviously full of fear and rationale and conditioned mind, and it's keeping them small. It's a story. So I would, for the men I work with, I do a lot of stuff to get them out of their head and get them into their body. So I'll do sort of stuff like cold showers, meditation, breath work, and then just noticing how they feel afterwards. So that's one way, is just getting out of their head, because in that they then realize, well, hang on a minute, I'm not my thoughts. I don't need to be my thoughts. I can be whoever I want to be. So then that starts that process, right? As you said, realizing you're not your thoughts is the start. It's incredibly powerful and profound experience or insight that. So firstly, it's like getting out their heads and getting into their body, cold showers, and then developing courage. Developing courage is like a muscle, and sort of falling in love with their future self, falling in love with the person they want to be, and then building the systems to get there. And starting small and building just actionable steps that can get them there, and then just noticing how they feel, noticing their aliveness, building in that self-awareness as a habit, and just sort of realizing, hang on a minute, I feel alive when I start writing, or I feel alive when I'm blogging, or I feel alive when I'm playing five-side football. And once you start doing that, that will build that intrinsic motivation, because you want to do more of the stuff that makes you feel alive, and it will just sort of naturally go from there. So yeah, first always starts with self-awareness, and then looking forward, who do you want to be? Like, who's that person? Falling in love with that person, building the systems to get there, and just start taking small actions. And without actions, it's all irrelevant. So it really just comes down to actions and consistency and noticing how you feel.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
I just love how you've got a way of making such, which could potentially amazing transformational tips, sound so easy and understandable and relatable. And it's not like, you're trying to be like up here and we're down here. You're kind of just going like a buddy going, just talk to me. And it just feels so natural to speak to you. And I think that's something we struggle with, is that we're dictated by, you've got to be strong, you've got to be brave, you've got to be quiet, you're not allowed to speak about your feelings. I think there was something like where they said it to like 60% of men said they didn't identify having a best friend. They didn't have close friends. And I felt that was terrifying. Like, imagine not having somebody you can just go up to. And I know girls have this, we all take the mick about them going to the toilets together and all that, and at parties. But men, why do we feel we have to be strong and dominant? Where I think Aubrey Marcus, when I had him on the podcast, he was the first person that ever talked about having masculine energy and feminine energy as a male. To like you're saying, to ask the questions that we're scared about, to go and be vulnerable and open and honest to each other. And I found that like amazing. Like, I had Jude Hoskra on. He was talking about using reframing, where you look at something as a threat. Instead, you take it and go, how can I reframe this into a challenge? How can I take this into a learning experience or a better way of looking? How do you start that? Do you find it better to work with somebody one-to-one, or is it better on a group? How do we start building that openness?
Yeah, I work with my clients both ways, but the way into men for me is sell them what they want and then give them what they need. So
I love it.
I position to men like performance. performance, more money, more success, better health, better body, I position it as that. But the real work I do is, getting them connected to their body, their emotions, their feelings, their heart, getting them out of their head and sort of into their body, taking action. And the way I kind of do that is position it as a way to perform better. Our emotions, our feelings determine our thoughts determine our actions determine our results. So I start with that, like, hey, we're in the results game. We want to be healthier, we want to be fitter, we want to be wealthier, we want to be more successful. Our actions determine those. What determines those? Our thoughts. What determines our thoughts? Our feelings. Our feelings and our thoughts feed each other. What's below that? Our emotions. And that's where men don't just stop. So if we're not aware of our emotions, we're missing out this whole resource of information that's in our body that we can tap into. But if we stop above that, then we're just in our head and we have no ability to reframe things. So I position it as, performance. And then what naturally starts happening is they start expressing how they feel. And I ask them, how do you feel right now? And we in my group coaching calls, we do a check-in where we ask, how are you feeling in your head, your body, and your heart, separating those three: head, body, heart. And once people start doing that, they're like, wow, I've actually never sat with my emotions and explain my emotions. And then the more emotional literate we are, with more emotional fitness we develop, the more able we are to regulate our emotions. That does lead to better performance. It does lead to better results. So it's kind of, sell them what they want, give them what they need.
No, I love that. I love that kind of thing of, you're almost like playing to their ego enough to get them, to get the whole part of them interested, because I think sometimes our ego hides us from taking something on because it goes, oh, no, we're not touching that dark stuff. We're happy as we are. Or, we're not stepping out the comfort zone, where sometimes it's good just to go, oh, come here, I'll show you how to get a better body, get money, get girls. And then when you're actually dealing with them, you can start tapping into the deeper stuff. Yeah, it's an awesome way to do it. And I mean, I know, like, I struggled with imposter syndrome for ages. Like, I hated going to the pubs and stuff like that. And when I started the podcast, I mean, I can't believe it's 130 odd episodes recorded. I would have normally given up something as soon as it became a struggle, and suddenly this opened up speaking to amazing people like yourself. You recommend journaling, and you're a big component about 10 questions in a day. How do you find that? Like, how do we start that honestly, I can't speak today, that voyage of discovery? What questions do we ask yourself each morning to shape the day and shape how we're living our life, our week, our month, our year, whatever it is?
Yeah, so in the morning, I like to keep it really simple. So what's my one thing today? The book, The One Thing, had a really big impact on my life. And ever since reading that, I've always just had one thing for the day and just been really conscious of just simplifying my life. I really believe that a fulfilled life comes from simplification, subtraction, not addition. So what's my one thing for the day? What are some potential challenges, and how would my best self be in those moments? So they're probably the 3 questions that I'll ask in the morning.
Okay.
And then in the evening, it's really simple. It's like, what did I do well today? What could I have done better? What will I do better tomorrow? Really simple again. And that first one is really big for men. What did I do well today? Because most men live in that gap of where they are to where they want to be. And when we live in that gap, we're just going to always come up short, right? Because our future self is ambitious. It's ahead of us. And when we live in that, we're just going to come up short. It's going to hit our confidence. We potentially get depressed and all these things, and we're just going to beat ourselves up. Dan Sullivan, the coach, talks about living in the gain, not the gap, which is where we look back and we realize how far we've come. And in that builds confidence and fuels more motivation, fuels bigger action, fuels bigger ambition. So I think that's really, really important for men, is just to celebrate the successes in the day. Without that, like, what's the point of this all? So yeah, celebrating the successes and then asking, what could I do better?
Because so few people actually review their day. They don't even look at like since I've started doing I was always negative. I hated everything. It was always someone else's fault, etc. But when I started writing down 3 things I was grateful for each day, and I tried not to just go a warm bed, food. I kind of looked and went like it was silly things like getting to work from home, and rather than being in a busy office during COVID, or I had a really great jiu-jitsu session and I actually felt confident walking out the gym or something like that. And when I started doing it, you start noticing little things to be proud of in your life. Kind of, oh, I am grateful for that. I'm grateful for my sister. I am grateful for my brother, whatever it is. And at the end, I've started doing this thing called small victories. And it doesn't matter how simple and stupid it is. Like, I took the bin out rather than leaving it on the floor for a couple of days. As soon as I tied it up, put it straight into the outside. For some people, that's massive. For some people, it's I spoke to a guy at work and asked about my raise. Whatever it is, like a small little goals. It doesn't need to be life-changing. And then you start, like you're saying, is you start noticing where you are and where you want to be and what you're doing is how it's fitting in. And I think that's amazing. Because I used to think journaling, meditation, phooey, what other things do you find like that work well? How have you set up like a wake up? Because you're one of these evil people that think getting up at 5 o'clock seems like a good idea. I would struggle like that. How do you have a shut down and a wake up routine that shapes your days and builds you and gets you ready for the next one? I know that's about 50 questions, but
it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So using the concept of it's Charles Duhigg, the keystone habit. There's various keystone habits in my day, which is kind of that lead domino that leads to an onset of good positive habits. For me, waking up at I wake up at 4:45. Like that is my lead domino, and I don't give myself any choice but to wake up at that time. I have my alarm outside. I use an app called Alarmy. I have to solve 3 maths equations to switch it off. I don't give myself the option to snooze. And and then as soon as I'm into that, I'm into my morning routine, which is I prime my body. So I'll do some breath work. I flood my body with positive emotions. So I'll feel gratitude. I'll step into a moment, perhaps with my daughter, and I'll relive that moment. I'll allow all those positive emotions to flood through my body. Then I have a moment of silence, 5 to 10 minutes, do some journaling, and then I'm into what I call my magic time, which is about an hour and a half of deep work. And then I have my morning with my daughter, then I go to the gym. So I really believe in, bookending your days, your morning and your evening. That's when you're most in control. And my evening's a little bit more flexible. Like I obviously getting up at 4:45 does require going to bed pretty early. So I like to be in bed by sort of 9:30, sort of asleep, by 10 absolute latest. But I just meditate before bed, a little bit of journaling, and then I'm off. So less regimented in the evening, I suppose. But I wouldn't stay up really past 10 during the week.
No, I love that kind of approach. It's like being grateful for something, planning the day, using a consistency. I think there was an admiral, I can't remember his name, I think it was Richard Walker, and he was saying, just make your bed. If that's the only thing you do in the morning, but just having a small accomplishment like that motivates you to do the next accomplishment. It's like when they say to people, if you're not wanting to go and work out, just go into the gym, change, and do one set of one exercise. And if you're still hating it, leave. And at that point, though, most people go, I can do another set. Oh, I might go and have a play about on that machine. Oh, I've never tried that. And before they know it, they've done a full workout. And it's that, like you're saying, that lead domino to get people going. You were talking about, at the time, I think you were talking about thriving under uncertainty. And you said that you love looking at where I had to write it down. It was how to use the Stoic philosophy to remove yourself from the end goal and not take it personally. How do we stop looking at things and going, oh, I should have done this. Oh, I'm a failure because I've not done the 15 things on my list. And instead just use like Stoicism and say, this is what I need to achieve. I'm going to do it. It doesn't put a value on me by not achieving it or achieving it, but it just helps me in my goals. How do we use that kind of philosophy and approach to life?
Stoicism is the tools that I love using from Stoicism kind of negative visualization, and also just realizing that in that kind of comparison, or I should have done this, I should have done that, or I should be here. It's realizing that you are living someone else's dream. There's always someone, however bad your situation, there's always someone that will want your life, or your life is their dream. And that's why traveling is so powerful, and going to poorer countries, you have those moments of just real gratitude and perspective. And there's a moment I traveled around Sri Lanka and used to live in Indonesia, and I lived near a rubbish tip, and people live in this rubbish tip. And that's a moment I'll go back to, in those moments where I'm thinking I should have done that, or complaining about my life. It's just having that realization that I'm living someone else's dream. Someone would absolutely die to have my life.
Yeah.
And that's just a real perspective shift of like, stop this moaning, stop this complaining, focus on what you have, be grateful. And that sort of stoicism theory of kind of the way to be happy is to want what you already have. Most people's formula for happiness is, once I have more money, once I have the job, once I have the pay rise, then I'll be happy. Stoicism thinks their theory of happiness is want what you already have. And what a wonderful way to look at life.
Because you always have I love that kind of way. It's like you always hear the guys kind of going, if I have this, when I have this, I'll be, sorted, and thinking, you're complete the way you are. You don't need to change. You don't need to, if you want to go and do something for you, go and do it. But don't do it because it's going to be, impressing the Joneses or something like that. And I used to think that as like, oh, I'm going to upgrade my car. I don't really need one, but I'm just going to get it because it'll impress my mates. Oh, I'm going to go and play football. And I wasn't really enjoying it at the time because I want to be part of the group of lads and stuff like that. I didn't feel like I could just sort of fit in without being part of the football team or something like that. And it amazed me if, like, when I look back now. But if you'd said to me I'd be doing the stuff I am now, I'd have said, you're off your nut. I look back and I'm so grateful for what I've done, but I think a lot of people, like you're saying, they don't have that gratitude. They don't appreciate that, people would kill to have the lifestyle we have nowadays in some societies. And it's terrifying when you see what some people are putting up with. I spoke to a guy called Jonas Diekman. He had traveled around the world and that, and he was saying it was amazing just going to like Mexico and things when people had absolutely nothing except the community spirit, the connection between them, and how people go out their way to help each other. And, we talk about it on the media as being the worst place in the world and, danger and all these sort of places. And he said what he found was the people were amazing. It's, but they don't have much, but what they do, they'll share and they'll connect and they're willing to go out. And it's a beautiful way of looking at it. Have you always been sort of interested in the Stoic philosophy, or is this something that you've developed as you found out more about yourself?
Yeah, it's been a relatively new thing. It's been a relatively new thing. And it's definitely an area that I really want to learn more about. And I think there's perhaps a misunderstanding about the Stoicism that they're kind of emotionless and they're very, straight. And actually, some of the tools can sound a bit dreary, like negative visualization. Imagine losing the person closest to you. It's like, but actually the result of that is like real gratitude and love and appreciation and joy. Whenever I'm having a bad day, I'll actually have a moment where I'm like, imagine losing my wife and daughter. And it will only be for a split second, but it snaps me out of it. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I complaining? This may be the last time I ever do this. This may be the last time I ever play with my daughter. Like, let's be here right now. And it's just, they're just tools to bring us back to the present moment. I'm very much early in my journey in Stoicism. I definitely wouldn't say I'm a Stoic, but I really interested in trying to combine, I'm interested in Stoicism, Buddhism. I don't know much about it, but I'm really interested in that. Neuroscience, kind of, just all of it really. I'm just fascinated by the mind.
I love the way that you're kind of you're always looking to evolve and grow yourself and kind of find, play with different things. And, because a lot of people got into stoicism. Ugh, I really need to learn to speak today. When Tim Ferriss came on the scene, and he was talking about it, but one of the things he was talking about was how Cato and like the Roman Republic at the time, he would go and like wear the harshest clothes and only eat the crappiest foods. So he was like, if that's the worst thing, I've already done it. So I know that that's my lowest point to fall back to. I don't need to worry about it. And you talked about how fear and struggle and resistance are great teachers. How do we use these concepts to realize that that's not saying stop, that's trying to teach you something, like panic, fear, struggle in our lives is actually try to teach you or suggest that we need to change something. How do we learn from these kind of things?
So there's two things that come to mind. One thing is like consciously inflicting stress. So picking something like a cold shower. I have a weekly workout which I call "Going to My Dark Place," and it's a workout where I'm really fearful. Like I take my body right to its edge, and it's where I go meet my mind. The same in the shower, right? You switch the cold shower on. There's fear. There's like this story in your head, like I can't do this. I can't do this, and by focusing on the controllable, focusing on your breath, your body position, focusing on your self-talk, by doing that, you regain control of the moment and you bring yourself into presence. Stepping into that cold, you then realize it's actually not bad. It's my judgment of this moment that's bad. So using that as a tool to, understanding that fear is just a story, it's just a judgment, it's just a thought, a belief that you've made up to keep you safe, but using those as a sort of way to like regain control of your mind, regain control of your self-talk, and then you can then consciously choose fear as a signal of what to step into. So that's kind of that's one way. And then the second way to kind of disarm fear is actually what Tim Ferriss says is map it out. Actually think through what you're fearing. What is the worst case scenario? Write it all down. Go deep with it. And then say, okay, how could I prevent that from happening? What would I do if that worst case scenario happened? How could I repair the situation? And in that, you realize, well, I'm fearing nothing because the worst case scenario is really not that bad. I could repair it like that. And I could put these strategies in place to prevent the worst case scenario from happening. So actually logically, like appeasing our logical mind and actually logically breaking down the fear is a great way of doing it. And then, using sort of inflicting conscious stress and using that as a tool to develop mental strength and kind of mental fortitude is another great way.
Yeah, I know we're going down like so many rabbit holes, but I was just thinking, like, I can't believe it's like 50 minutes already. I was thinking we're only just sort of touching the surface on like a lot of things. I would love to have you on again and really go into things like, but what happens if we make a mistake? And a lot of people will be starting their journey and they'll be great. They'll be doing their workouts and all that. And then they'll go and have a night out because they can't get out somebody's like, stag party or something like that. And then they go, oh, I'm not going to work out today. Oh, I'm going to have a pizza today. Before they know it, it's like the dominoes just knocked on. How do we reset, recover, and recalibrate when we do make a mistake? Do you have like mantras that you just go, or do you become so unattached to the emotion, you're just like, okay, shut down that day, let's get my routine for the next day. And you don't kind of dwell on it? Because I used to sit and dwell and hate having regrets and looking back at some of the stupid things I've done. How do you kind of move on from mistakes?
So one I suppose it's kind of self-awareness. Without self-awareness, it's very easy to get caught in that vicious circle and spiral out of control. So it's having self-awareness and some self-compassion in there as well. I say, there's three things that I kind of say to myself is like never twice in a row. If there's something you regret, just don't do it again. Never twice in a row. Like I
Awesome.
snooze occasionally.
Mhm.
Just don't do it tomorrow. I sometimes overeat. Cool, don't do it tomorrow. And that just maintains momentum. When we lose momentum, it's very easy to spiral out of control. And, guilt can be a useful tool. A negative emotion, again, regret can be a useful tool because it's giving signs of like when we're not living aligned, when we're not being true to ourselves, when we're not being our best self. So use those as tools with compassion and just say, cool, not again tomorrow, never twice in a row. So that's one thing I kind of say. And then the second is, the worse we feel, the more we rely on our systems. So when we're at our worst, like that's when we need to just lean into our systems. That's when we need to just lean into our habits and just focus on, okay, what is that one system, that one habit that gets things going, and just focus solely on that rather than the bigger picture. And then the third thing I'll kind of say is what you do on the tough days determines what you do on the extraordinary days. Like those days where you don't want to work out, where you want to snooze for hours, you don't want to go to work, you don't want to focus, you don't want to, those are the days that you absolutely must. Like the more you don't want to do something, the more you need to do it.
Mhm.
And the way we do that is we make decisions when we're at our best to defend ourselves when we're at our worst. So when you're feeling motivated and things are going well, like sign up to marathon, buy a pack of personal training, sign up with a coach, sign up to things that will become your defense mechanisms. Leverage that motivation because the bad times will come. And I think this is a big thing with the positive, toxic positivity that's going on. People forget that the bad times will come, and they will come. So make decisions when you're at your best to protect yourself when you're at your worst, those times which will come. And then when those come, you have the systems, you have the defense mechanisms, you have the personal trainer that's waiting for you, you have the coach who's calling you up, you have these defense mechanisms which keep you on the straight and narrow. So they're the kind of the ways that I would rebound from mistakes.
That's also, I mean, just that alone would be enough to change people's lives of how to look at what they're doing and how their day. And I can see why you've been such a success in changing people's lives. It is amazing the way you can just you feel like you're working on me before, and I know that so many people are going to listen to this and go, "Wow, I need to sign up with this guy. I need to work with this guy." But how did becoming a father change you? A lot of people, they're fine in their own journey, but as soon as they get a relationship, they maybe fall back, they maybe lose the motivation, the momentum because they get comfortable. How does
Mm.
becoming a father like change it? Do you think we should be teaching our kids the things we didn't know rather than giving them things we didn't have? Do you think we should be like, can we push our partners into wanting to change as well? Or is it our own personal journeys? How do we stop letting a big life goal affecting our own journey in life? I don't mean that to sound negative or sort of
Mm.
egocentric, but how do we keep going from there?
Mm. I mean, initially I found it a little bit challenging. There's this other person demanding my time, and at the time, I'm very purpose driven. I've got a mission. I love what I do. I love my routine. I love all these things. And then there was this other person that was demanding a lot of that time. So I won't lie. Initially, I found that very challenging.
Yeah.
Um, but as kind of time's gone on, she has become she has taught me so much about life, more than I'll ever teach her. And I just cherish every single moment with her. So for me, she's really taught me the value of time, and she's taught me to like really engage with the present moment. Just watching her, she's so fully present. Obviously, she's not thinking about the future or the past. She's fully present. She's also
Mm.
taught me about expressing her emotions. Like, when she's sad, she'll cry. When she's happy, she'll laugh. She's fully engaged. She's fully present. She's fully authentic and just expressing her truth. So she's teaching me way more than I'll ever teach her. And she's become a big part of my mission, my purpose, my values, and she's actually made me far more focused, far more effective, because I want to do as much as I can to spend as much time with her as I can. I won't work past 5 from 5 to 7, that's my time with her. I have an hour with her in the morning. I work from home often, and spend hours here and there at lunchtime and what have you. And I don't work weekends because I want to be with her. So she's actually made me far more effective with work because she's made me realize my own limitations. I've got less time. So in that, I've made harder decisions, tougher decisions. I've started to make higher leverage decisions. I've started to say no to more. And the things that I say yes to, because I've made tougher decisions, I'm all in for. I'm more effective. I'm thinking higher leverage. And because of that, my success has actually skyrocketed because I've started making those harder decisions. Had I not had her, you don't realize your own limitations, and you can carry on working till 11 p.m. and you can work on the weekends and blah, blah, blah. And because you think you can do it all, you don't say no. And you say yes to loads of things. And then in that, you value your time less, so you take more on. Then your mind gets scattered, your attention gets scattered. You then you can feel anxiety from all the things you could do, and you're far less effective. And actually having a baby does the opposite. It's like it reminds you of your own limitations of time, and then it forces you to make tough decisions. And in those tough decisions, you start to value the decisions that you say yes to, and then you're all in on those decisions. And my whole principle in life is just to be fully engaged. Like wherever you are, there you are. Be there.
It's great because I'm an uncle to 3, and 2 nephews and a niece, and it's amazing when you look at them and you go, they don't care about the past. They don't care about the future. It's all just about the present and doing things and learning, and it's their curiosity, the joy, and and it makes you a better person. I love being able to hand them back, which is great. I love being Uncle Ian and doing the crazy stuff and the wrestling and all that with them. But I'm definitely wanting to become a father later on. And I think that's what for a lot of guys, it's having something depends on them, that you can't. And it's like that. Is it Pareto's law? The amount of time that you have for something, you'll fit the task into it. So if you've got a weekend, you'll spend all weekend on a job. If you've only got half an hour, you're only going to spend half an hour on something. You're just going to get it done. You're going to cut out the crap. You're going to do the essentials. And I think having kids definitely does something like that to us. I mean, until we can get around to it, I'm really disappointed to have to end. I mean, what would you want people to take from this? What do you want them to remember as an overall message before we get into like the social media handles and things? What would you want them to, is there homework you would have them do? Is there a mindset shift you would want them to be thinking about?
Big question. I feel under pressure, but I would say, I would say take responsibility for your life. Lean into discomfort. Use discomfort as a signal of what to do, not to what to run away from. And I mean, let's just leave it there. Take responsibility for your life and start using discomfort, resistance, fear as a signal of what to do. And you start doing that, you start building that courage muscle, you start stepping away from comfort and stepping into that courage. Life will become exciting. It will become fulfilled. It's scary, it's hard, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And you've probably experienced it with launching this podcast, right? To put yourself out there, to reach out to guests, to do all these things. That's brave. It's courageous, but that feeling of after you do it, that fulfillment you get from stepping into that fear is just, it makes you feel alive, and then you want more of that. And take responsibility, lean into discomfort. I'd say those two. There's many things, but I would say those two.
Because it is scary. I mean, when you come away, I never feel like I'm the same person after an episode. Your comfort zone or your starting point is slightly different because the guest has opened you up into changing or something. Do you find that with your clients, that working with somebody makes you grow as a person? And do you have a favorite client transformation? That obviously there's certain things you won't be able to talk about, but is there is there one that you can think about that blows you away when you look at who they were to who they are now?
I love all my clients. I love all my clients, and I learn so much from my clients. I learn so much from them. And they're teaching me to be a better person because, a big part of coaching is, teaching your own nervous system not to be reactive, not to get triggered, so you can hold space and be fully present. So I have to do the work on myself to be able to hold presence and space for them. So they push me, they teach me. It's hard to drill down on a number of clients, but I'll come to the one that's kind of most fresh, who's an incredible guy, but he didn't realize his own greatness, and he was thinking small, and he had self-doubt, he had imposter syndrome, and I just got him to see his own greatness. I got him to start thinking bigger, and I got him to start thinking like 100 times bigger than he currently was. And in that, we had fun with it. We had fun with it. Like, okay, what if the goal was 10 times bigger? How would you think? And you go, I'll do this and this and this. Okay, what if it was 10 times bigger than that? I'll do this, this, and this. And I said, what's stopping you doing that? He's like, nothing. It's just my own beliefs that's stopping me doing that. I didn't even see that as an option because my beliefs have created a wall around me that I don't even see those as options. So getting him to see those options by just challenging his beliefs and his perceptions. And recently he's just won a huge, he's a research fellow. He's just won a huge grant from the government to go and research nuclear fusion. Guy's incredibly smart.
Awesome.
And he's looking at essentially changing the world, looking at ways we can create renewable energy in a safe way. Like, this guy could lead to humongous change for us all. And it just came from the fact that he needed to realize his own greatness and think bigger. So yeah, I'd say that's my favorite client.
It must be amazing to look at that and think that people, like, we all have this inner greatness, but I think that's sometimes the biggest regret is people will die knowing that they could have been more. There was a book years ago that I found. It was on about writing a bucket list. First time I'd ever heard about it. And, they were saying it's like, but once you write out your list of what you want in life, start going through it, be accountable, find people to do it with, tick it off. Don't just find it in your loft, with your grandkid and they'll ask you what it is, and you go, oh, and that's your life you realize you could have had. Is going and finding your greatness, and it's working with people like you that are going to change people. So until we can do a round two, and and then I'm going to push you to the moon when it comes to like links to social media and like putting out your posts and stuff like that. How can we connect with you? How can we work with you? How can we find you on like Instagram, YouTube, these sorts of things? Have you got programs that people can join, or how would you start working with you?
Yeah, so probably Instagram is the best place. I am Joel Burgess is my handle. I have a group coaching program. It's a 12-week group coaching program. It's called 63 Days to Personal Power. It's all about gaining clarity on your values, your vision, your goals, then building the systems to get there whilst developing a sort of bulletproof mindset. We look at stoicism. We look at all sorts of ways that we can develop a resilient mindset, and then surrounding yourself with like-minded, ambitious people who will hold you accountable, raise the standards. It's a game changer. Like, every single man that's gone through the program has transformed their life. And the beauty of it, it's not just a one and done. Like, you get a system that you can use for the rest of your life. Like, I'm all about systems. And that's what you get by the end of it. So that's kind of where I'd start. And I do have, I work with 10 one-to-one clients at a time. They're very much kind of very top performers, big CEOs type, and I don't have space currently, but so the group coaching program is where to start.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.